Hey everyone, this is part three of my conversation with Malone. And in this episode, if you missed parts one and two, you might want to go check those out. There will be links in the comments. This episode is kind of a standalone because I finally, after much subtle prying, got Malone to tell some really juicy prison stories. There's been a couple in the previous episodes, which you can definitely go check out. But both Malone and I end up telling some really good stories from prison, what life was like, and just some crazy stuff that happened, which, as much as I love doing the video essays, I think a lot of people tend to want to hear the war stories. I don't blame them. They're interesting. Not a lot of places where you can go listen to the crazy stuff that we did while we were locked up. Now, on with the show. It's really I remember watching it, and I remember being a trustee and seeing all the rows of houses and everything back there, and just thinking, I'm like,
this is one of the things that really blew me away whenever I found out about it, because I had oftentimes wondered how it is that they fostered such unity whenever it came to things like, keeping their mouths shut about the stuff that goes on, and whenever inmates file lawsuits and they call all these guards down there, and the guards will go in there and they'll lies. I mean, they'll tell lies. And I couldn't understand, how is it that they get these people? These people, they should have a life of some kind. Why is it so important to them to tell lies for these other people? They're not getting anything out of it, really, other than maybe the support of the other, in case they wanted to get in trouble or do whatever they're doing. But when I was working in the field force over there on Darrington, I was only had been in prison maybe it's probably about the halfway point of my 30 years. But at one point, the trustee camp guys that were the outside yard squad, I was on the inside yard squad, which meant I didn't leave the actual fence of the unit. We worked the inner perimeter of the unit on in, but the outside yard squad takes care of everything that's outside the fence. They're the trustees. So they came to us because they were having problems, because the trustees. The deal with trustees is those guys aren't going to be there, but most of them just a couple months, if even that, and they don't care. They're going to be in there for 5 minutes, and they're going home no matter what, because they have small time. That's why they're in the trustee camp, is because they have very petty crimes. And they don't give a damn if the warden's lawn looks nice or not. But the guys I was working with were all a bunch of lifers that had already been locked up for more than 20 years. And they had this Stockholm syndrome that was something serious about getting their the warden's lawns to look nice. And they went and talked, the other inmates I'm working with, went to their boss, went to the woman that was the head over the inside yard squad, and to the higher ups, and convinced them, hey, let us go out there and mow the warden's grass. We'll do a good job, because they were pointing out the fact that the grass on the inside of the unit looked better than the grass on the outside of the unit, right? There was a noticeable difference. And so they were so worried, they had so presented this, that they actually gave our officer a gun and told her to take us out like we were a regular unit, like a field squad, to go out there and do the warden's grass. We did, of course, we did a great job, and so the warden was all in approval, and he wanted us to go take care of other things like the pool house, and this got to where it was so out of control that then they put us on a wagon and took us off the unit a good stretch down the road from the Darrington unit, and there it's still on Darrington unit's property, because these units have vast amounts of property. They're on, like you said, plantations, which is a large swath of land, and on that land, there is a neighborhood, a whole entire street. And on this street, the whole street is nothing but prison guards, any rank from sergeant on up, getting towards the captains. Captains had quarters that were off to the side. It was like apartment buildings almost, just for them. But then these were like regular homes. They looked like a suburban street, other than the fact that there was just woods on either side of it and no other neighborhoods there, because it was on Darrington's land. the guys that were the mailroom women, the people that worked in the education department. I mean, all of these all lived right there, all on the street next to each other, and that's whenever I got it. That's how. This is what the deal is. They keep these people separated from regular society. They're their own little insular group of, and they're maintaining this nice little cushy situation they have with inmates cutting their grass for them and doing their laundry and cooking their meals and everything else. And so yeah, it's completely within their interest to get. I mean to sit there and lie and to keep their good thing that they got going.
It's yeah. I mean, there's no way the amount that they pay most of the people that work at these prisons, they could never have the things they have on the salary they make
But
unless
they don't have to they don't have to
they're.
buy their own food. They
Mm-mm.
don't have to buy their own food. They don't have to clean their own clothes. They don't. There's so much of the stuff. Some units actually they have automotive repair classes, right? For where inmates go in there and learn how to repair cars. Well, whose cars are they repairing?
Oh yeah,
The guards
exactly.
are allowed to bring their vehicles in there and have their vehicles maintain. The only thing the guard has to do is pay for the parts.
Yeah,
I mean, think about it.
which is that.
It's
Yeah.
it's a really good deal. I mean, they're getting uh, a lot of bang for their buck. Yeah, I've known guards that had untold fortunes worth of wealth that they had accrued over time living in the BOQs and staying on the unit and just not spending any of the money that they make. They're able to retire and then they hire themselves back onto TDC again after they retire. And then they collect a retirement pension and a prison guard thing and still live in the BOQ. It's crazy. It's insane to think about that. But
It's
I had a cellie named Troy Holt, right? And Troy Holt was remarkable for a lot of things, but Troy Holt was another one that was like Geesey. Probably he may well have even been better than Geesey. Troy Holt, I can't remember what unit he was on where he did this. It wasn't the Darrington unit, but he was my cellie on the Darrington unit. But he was still fighting. He had still fought the lawsuit, that he'd been removed from the other unit that he was on. But he had asthma. It was documented that he had asthma. He was prescribed asthma medication by the infirmary. And then one year they up and decided that they had a freeze that was coming, and they had a large and out there in the fields they had a large crop that needed to be brought in, and so they complained they didn't have enough inmates in the field force at the time to do this, and so they said, "Hey, we don't care. Jack everybody for their restrictions. They're going into the fields." So they put all these guys in the fields. A lot of them that had medical problems that were supposed to preclude them from going to the fields. Troy Holt being one of them. And he went out there and he said, "Man, I'm going out there, but I'm only going to go out there for one day." He's like, "Oh, so why are you doing that?" Because he said, "I wanted it on record that they actually took me out." And because he knew what he was going to do, he said he knew it was illegal what they were doing. And then he went out there and started filing. He filed his grievances and went through the grievance process. Went through all the. It takes years to do this, by the way, too. You're not going to get remedy for anything that they do to you. You're not going to get any kind of immediate remedy. You can take upwards of 2 years or more, and it is a hard, difficult, grueling fight just to get into court. To get
yeah.
into court for something like this is not easy in Texas. They will hire legal experts that will perform. I mean, they will be filing charges on you, trying to get you to stop with your case. They will have you
Hmm.
kicked out of court several times, and if you don't know how to get back into court, you're out of there. You have to really know your law to be able to do this. This is not easy, and it requires a lot of knowledge of the law, which most inmates don't have. I mean, how many of us are lawyers? I know I'm not. I mean, it's not. To become a lawyer takes a long time. You're not going to get there overnight.
And it
So,
requires, yeah, you have to study. I mean, you're constantly
yeah, they have
studying.
law libraries. I mean, but those things are it's like walking into a library. Where do you start? I mean, it's not easy. It's not easy at all.
You
But
there's
there's some guys that have a mind for it, and or they had a background in it before they came to prison, and they jump into it like fish in the water. And if you're lucky enough to meet up with a couple of those people, they might be able to help you out. Well, Troy Holt wasn't one of he was one of those people that did the helping out. He was able to get all sorts of things accomplished, but his was on his own personal thing. So he filed a lawsuit on them, and they quickly realized that they were dealing with something completely different when it came to Troy Holt. And so the normal lawyer that they had on retainer for prisons was inadequate. Troy Holt was running circles around this guy. So they fired him and hired a new lawyer, some woman. Her name was Melissa Holt. Melissa Holt. She had the same last name as my Sally Troy Holt, which was kind of odd. But they filled her head full of horseshit. They told her, look, this guy, he's a criminal, he's a piece of shit, and what he's absolutely lying. He has there's nothing wrong with this dude whatsoever. He's trying to get over on the state of Texas, and he's just trying to con the state of Texas out of some money. And you're a hero of the state of Texas if you help us, defeating this evil inmate in what he's trying to do. And so they had her wired up. Now she was young and she was really worried about her reputation and thought that this was going to be a reputation booster, and it ended up hurting her in the long run because who the person that was lying to her was the guards, not the inmates. The guards were the ones the prison officials were the ones that were telling lies. So Troy wrote on I-62 the classification asking who it was that changed his job, and the woman that wrote back was the same woman that he sent the I-62. And she wrote in red ink at the bottom of the I-60. I remember because he showed it to me. It says, "I changed your job, Mr. Holt," and signed it at the bottom, red ink. That'll be significant for the end of the story. So after fighting for 2 years, a long battle just to get into court, it was 2 years worth of legal fighting in which Melissa Holt filed several charges on him, filed a list of charges on him saying that if anything from falsifying state evidence or documents and things like that, all sorts of things that she filed. And he had his case kicked out of court. He turned around and did the exact same thing to her and filed a number of charges on her and did the exact same thing to her that she had done to him and got himself back into court. And they started doing this back and forth all the way until a judge called them both into a courtroom and got them into a courtroom. They weren't going to court yet, but the judge got them before them and said, my courtroom will not, he had made some statement like, my courtroom will not be a battlefield for a piecemeal or something like that. What the hell does that mean? But it meant something to him. And it made it to where they were no longer allowed to file charges on one another because of all the BS charges that they kept back and forth at each other, their legal war, and said that, look, y'all will have to go to, this is going to end up in court. That's the only way this could be resolved. So the bickering managed to actually get him into court in the long run because the back and forth legal thing made it to where the only reasonable solution could be brought about in court. So once he got into court, it was open and shut. He got into court, and they put people on the stand. They put the doctor on the stand. At medical, the doctor gets up there, says, Mr. Holt has absolutely no medical conditions that would prevent him from working in the fields. And then right after he got done saying that, whenever it's the lawyer, Troy Holt's lawyer's turn, Troy Holt's lawyer gets up and walks over there and says, "Is this your signature?" And he's like, "Yes, this is my signature." What is it a signature on? What is the signature for? What is this piece of paperwork for? He says, "Well, this is to prescribe albuterol and asthma medication." He says, "Do you regularly prescribe asthma medication for people that don't have any medical conditions whatsoever? I mean, what are you doing here? Why did you sign this?" And there's paperwork. There's a long trail of paperwork that verifies everything that Troy Holt says. And each one of these people got up there and simply told a bold-faced lie, saying that no, everything, it's not true. It didn't happen. And then they break out the paperwork. The final piece of evidence was whenever Troy Holt himself was brought on the stand. He got on the stand, and the Melissa Holt, the state's attorney, said, "How is it?" Said, "You've alleged on here that it was this woman from the what you call it, from the classification that changed your job. How do you know it's her that changed your job?" And he reached into his pocket and pulled the I-60 out of his pocket and flipped it out and handed it to her and says, because she wrote at the bottom of this I-60, I changed your job,
Mm-hmm.
and then signed it at the bottom. And as soon as Holt, the lawyer for the state, it's like that was her wake up moment right then and there, is how it was described to me by Holt when he came back from court. He said, man, she looked at this and looked at me and then looked at them and realized that she had been taken for a ride by the state of Texas, that they had lied to her, and that her reputation was going to suffer for losing this case. She looked up at the judge and says, I'd like a recess right then and there. And Troy said they went out in the hallway and that he could, while they were standing in the hallway of the courthouse, he was at one end and Melissa was on the other end, and she was over there just screaming at all these TDC officials about the lies that said, you have made a fool of me. How dare you tell me these lies? They had lied to her that's the thing, is that they told so many lies. It just, and the natural, normal, I mean, I can understand exactly what happened to this person, because all she knows is what, the sort of normal mindset that the average citizen has. These are the good guys. These are the bad guys. Good guys would never act like that. Bad guys are act like that type of thing. She just and did not ever. They used that against her, and whenever she finally woke up, that these pieces of shit were the real fucking bad guys, and not this dude over here trying to keep himself from being put into the fields with his medical condition. And so she walked right over there and said, "Mr. Holt, I'm sorry." He says, "This has all been a big mistake, and I am, and I want to settle out of court right now. How much are you asking for?" And they gave him that check right then and there, sent it to his mom for $20,000.
That It's a very happy ending. I know that what 2-3 years like to get to
Yeah,
that
of being in
place.
the law library every single day, sitting there fighting these cases, with the outcome unknown, and them pulling every dirty trick they can against you that the state of Texas could possibly pull to keep this from ever making it to court. Troy Holt was different in that he had the endurance, and he had the, he was willing to face the whatever was going to come his way from those type of things, and a lot did. He got tons of cases written on him. There was all sorts of, the reason why he had to come to the Stringfellow unit. He didn't fight all of that on the Darrington unit. He fought most of it on the other unit that he was on. But the persecution behind him fighting this lawsuit had become so bad that he couldn't trust that he was still even going to be in population anymore and have access to the law library. He had got himself shipped off the farm. They thought they really did something to him by sending him to Darrington, because what a crazy place that is. But he was able to make it.
They always do that to like try and shake people up, just like Geesey trying to ship him to Stringfellow to shake him up. And then like I ended up meeting Geesey in person, because when I first moved to Stringfellow, their process is they'll put you on C block when you first move in, usually. And like
Yeah,
they'll put you in there because they want you to work, and C block is generally the worst block. So they want you, if you want to move to A or B, get a job, and then your boss will move you. And I was stuck over there for a minute, and even though I had a job right away and I worked it every day, but then I was fortunate that I got to meet Geesey, got to talk to him, got to learn about how his life was, his living with a when you have legal work, you are allowed to have an extra storage box that you have to take with you for shakedowns and everything. And that
yeah,
thing, it's a freaking giant chest full of nothing but paperwork. And that, oh gosh, that was a mess. It's a life. You like, the thing that it's really hard to get across is you want he you know he wanted to win his case. Both these guys wanted to win their case. That was their life. That they had.
yeah.
That was it for the
It's
rest of
every
their
day,
time.
all day. I mean, you're sitting in your cell writing. You have to hand write or type out by hand each one of these documents that you have to file. I mean, if you've ever seen a lawsuit, I mean, it's a ream of paper, if not more reams of paper. You have to gather evidence. All these things are not are would be difficult for someone in the free world. I mean, they would be, and compound that with your loss of ability to, you know, to move and communicate with the people that you need to, is it makes it 10 times worse, more difficult.
Well, and how do you type something out in prison?
How do you type something out in prison?
Yes, for the audience, how do you type something
You have
out?
you would have to buy a typewriter, and then and this typewriter you would have. I mean, I don't know what version. Well, I mean, they got tablets now in TDC, so that's probably all been changed. But the whole entire time I was in prison, you had typewriters, which they sold on commissary. And I swear to God, these things need to be put in a museum somewhere, because they're the only place in the world you could ever sell a uh, for for the longest time. They were like tan colored, like a flesh tone type of colored device, and they were fragile as all get out. And they're just flimsy pieces of plastic and this other stuff that you have to keep maintained, and you have to buy tons of ribbons for, and all this other stuff. You have to actually buy and change out ribbons. At one point, they sold a word processor that had a very limited sort of memory on it, and then the warranty. They got sick and tired of having to deal with the warranty on those things. People, people have no idea in prison just how, out there in the free world, just how difficult the prison environment is on any kind of device or appliance. It's extremely. I mean, you're living in very small quarters, and there's not anything in the way of. I mean, oftentimes cells don't have any kind of shelving or tables or anything in there at all. I mean, if you have a typewriter that you have to sit in your lap like a laptop, or you have to sit on your bunk or something.
I cannot imagine putting one of those typewriters on your lap. Those things were huge. They like it's not like a laptop you can put on your lap.
Yeah,
It's
this isn't a. It's not a laptop. You're right. That's what I'm trying to say. The environment itself is very it's very. You have floods in prison constantly. You have like you mentioned, the roach problem, the insect problem. Just the general heat and humidity is another situation. People, things are not designed with 100% humidity in mind. Oftentimes, they go bad really quickly.
people at home might have like keyboards with pneumatic keys, which are really they're nice, but they're very loud. But imagine non-pneumatic keys that are louder, and
Yeah,
because these things you can hear.
that was a big problem, because if you were in also being in prison, those typewriters are extremely loud. So if you're in a dorm situation, you couldn't type at night because everybody was trying to sleep.
Mhm.
So that just reduced a huge part of your day of being able. If your time isn't your own, you have to be considerate of the fact that there's all these other people that you have to deal with around you.
And you have
I mean, you can lose. I used to get time. I would started counting hours at one point because I got interested in how much time out of every single day I was spent standing at being staged
gosh,
in various day rooms or doorways, or wherever you might be staged, where they, because they move inmates up and down hallways. Whenever they do, they want to do it as a mass movement type of thing, and they try to do it in big chunks. And so they have to stage you somewhere. You can lose. I on average, it was on Darrington at the time that I was doing this, it was 5 hours out of every single day. It was being just staged places.
my biggest fear about prison was that I would just lose 10 years of my life, and that there would just be nothing. I would have accomplished nothing. I would have gotten nothing from like, and it would change me fundamentally by being in this place and just being having done nothing. And then I got to prison, and that was the thing that drove me nuts. Probably the times you probably saw me freak out the most in prison, because Malone has definitely seen me freak out.
And he did that a lot. He used to throw these little ah,
But
they won't let me get my card,
yeah,
my birthday card.
oh gosh, yeah. But the times I freaked out the most though were like stuck for no reason. Like there's so many where time is just dead. We can't like I can't sit down and write. I can't do any like we're just standing for no reason, and we're there because why? And it's not just me.
Because there's count time, because it's this, because it's that. It could be anything.
Yeah, I, I you know,
Because you're inconveniencing someone. I mean, whatever.
I mean, we talk about like people on the outside. They talk about wasting time by sitting and watching TV. That is accomplishing more than what we would do in many of these 2 to 4 hour periods where we would be stuck in these hallways with nothing, like just staring at the floor. There was Hanukkah. There's a perfect example. I would come from the trustee camp to um, go hang out with you guys for Hanukkah, and then I'd get stuck for two counts consecutively because it was the holidays.
Yeah.
Oh
Yep.
gosh, that sucked. Eh,
Hanukkah was.
yeah.
Yeah, I can remember it was a big stressor for you. That's always a stressor for me too because I know what they're doing. Because there's always, I don't know why it is, but they always give us some really anti-Semitic guard that can't stand the idea that these Jews are so special that they get their own holiday. I mean, oh man, really getting something here, being able to light candles on
Eh,
Hanukkah. And they that's why, and they go out of their way to try to make you stay there for an extra count or something like that, to sort of as their little punishment for you daring to want to practice your religion.
so this is how it would generally work. The guard at the trustee camp, super awesome, would like be like, "Hey, I know it's your holiday or whatever. So do you want to go? Like, I'll make sure you get over to the building. Officer at the building, what are you here for? What's your deal?" Of course he knew. It's like there's not like there's no movement going on in the building. The only thing that is going on at all is this. They called it over the radio. I can hear them calling it on the radio at the moment when he's asking, "Why are you here?" Like I so why the idea that he's asking me is crazy. And the problem is the guy sometimes it would be like I don't want to go. But then the guy at the trustee camp was being so nice and so respectful. I'm like, all right, if they're going to be like this, I'll do it. But then the person in the building is a total dick about it. And then that's the person who
Yeah,
gets me stuck in count. It's not the trustee camp. They're awesome. They'll let it ride. Person in the building, mm-mm, I'm out.
yeah. I remember that. I remember that was a big point of a big sticking point. That's kind of upsetting too because a lot of people would forego. It was a so much of a problem. There was a lot of people would just rather say fuck it than not light candles than be put through that. Or if they did, they would just go down there and light candles and run and not pray or something. And that was a big problem too because they were lighting candles at the wrong time. But this isn't the time or place to get into that for sure.
No,
but
yeah, it's and that's a whole nother. And this is the one brief mention on this is it's a thing that a lot of people don't understand, which is in Texas, if what is it? What's the word they use for like all faiths in Texas, like in the prisons?
oh,
Non-denominational.
non-denominational or faith based. Faith based was the word that they supposedly used. That's the word they use for it, non religion specific religious
Right,
program, which always means Christian.
right, and that's the thing is like the the thing that really bothered me in prison in general, and this is I'm sure it happens in Texas, but I know it's probably not just a Texas thing, is that non-denominational faith-based always meant Christian, and they would say like you're totally welcome even if you're a Methodist. It's like uh,
It doesn't matter what kind of
yeah,
religion you practice.
but
Come here and we're going to teach you about Christian. Come here and if you're not a Christian yet, we'll certainly do our best to make you one.
right, and it's like a lot of people sometimes they mean it like they're unlike a lot of like the prisons in Texas. They mean it really genuinely. Like they're trying not to be faith based, but they don't like understand a religion that doesn't involve Jesus and like
Yeah,
their
it's
version
just
of the
you're hitting them.
Bible.
You're banging your head against the wall and trying to. They just don't get it.
No,
Yeah. Well, some of the chaplains they definitely do understand. The chaplains
yeah,
certainly understand and know exactly what they're doing.
they do.
They're going to try and get you in there. Anything else other than your particular service, any chance they get, so they can preach, because that's the only opportunity to preach to.
You can find Shakedown merch, graphic novels, and other projects at waywordpress.com. That's WAYWORD press.com. If you would like to support the Shakedown, get exclusive content, and watch episodes live, you can support us at patreon.com/The Shakedown. Like, subscribe, and leave a comment to give Malone that inner peace he so richly deserves.